Hi.
Welcome everybody to our webinar. We've been looking forward to this for weeks, entitled Lunch Out of Landfills, an effort that we're going to hear all about that was started by Joe Richardson and some of his Interact stars that are also with us today. We'll hear from them a little bit later too. My name is Karen Hebert. I'm District Governor of Rotary District 6250, and I welcome you on behalf of the district governors from 6220 and 6270, Sridhar and Lisa. And we have put together an effort aimed at the beginning of October called Environmental Days of Service. And it's the braiding of three efforts. President Shekhar has asked us to have days of service. We enjoy working together very much as three districts, and we're going to be coming together for our district conference, TriCon 2020. And thirdly, Rotary's seventh area of focus added officially as of July 1st for celebrating supporting the environment. So without further ado, Joe, I'd like to introduce you and welcome you to 6250, and I'll share your slides and I'll be listening for you to ask me to advance them when the time is right. And we look forward to hearing all about Lunch Out of Landfills. Thanks.
Again, well, I'm really excited to have this opportunity. And what is really most energizing since this program started to take root is the interest that there are in schools, the passion that we see in students, and the impacts that are pretty profound, which I'll be sharing with you. You mentioned Rotary has focused climate as the seventh area of focus for the club, for the international club. And as part of that effort, the Environmental and Sustainable Rotary Action Group, SRAG, has been a great catalyst to try to implement solutions. Because what we're talking about today, what we'll be talking about is not so much activities, but more meaningful solutions that can change behavior and have an impact on the environment. Can you show the next slide? So this is about, as I mentioned, educating, engaging, and empowering young people. Because it's Lunch Out of Landfills, it's lunch in cafeterias. The youth that we're impacting are kindergartners, grade schoolers. There are high school students that can mentor elementary school kids. And by educating them and helping them understand the impacts of our consumption and that they can start this in their schools, makes this not something that you wait until a later date, but something you do now. So there's one more image that was supposed to come up. That was a waste sort that we're doing at Brunswick High School. The students pictured in the foreground of Churchill. So there is interest in every school, and I can promise you that every school in Wisconsin has 10, 12, 15, 100 students who have concerns about the environment and are looking for opportunities to take action. Next slide. So Rotary involvement came, as you'd mentioned, the seventh area of focus now is climate change. I had the opportunity to meet Mark Maloney at a PETS training back in 2019 when he was the Rotary International President. And I'm actually handing him a book called Drawdown. It's 80 Solutions to Reverse Global Warming and Climate Change. 2 months later, I'm sure it's not necessarily a direct result of that, but in the Rotarian Climate Solutions Within Our Reach appeared in the April 2019 issue. In that, there were 7 of the drawdown solutions mentioned, and a lot of it has to do with food waste, agriculture, as well as renewable energy. In the January 2020 issue, Lunch Out of Landfills was given some press in the Rotarian magazine about how we can try to start mitigating waste. And that's really what's been so exciting about Rotary. When I joined Rotary, it was really to fellowship with people in my community. It was to try to do some meaningful solutions, but Rotary is an international organization. And as we collaborated on eradicating polio, we can interface and work with other clubs around the world to solve even greater problems. Next slide. So in June of 2020, I had the opportunity to participate in the SRAG World Environment Day in conjunction with the United Nations. And unlike the individual in the center speaker, me, Some of the other individuals who were speaking, Daniel Cooney, who's a communications acting director at the United Nations Environmental Programs, Brendan Foran, who is entrusted with regreening Australia after those devastating wildfires, Jonathan Foley, the executive director of Project Drawdown. And what I think attracted SRAG and Rotary to Lunch Out of Landfills is this is a tangible solution that you can implement in your communities everywhere. Next image. Okay, so the core of the problem is that 30 to 40% of all of food that is produced in the United States is wasted before it's consumed. It may be a result of growing fallow in the field. It could be loss in transportation and refrigeration. Very often, perfectly edible food is rejected in the supermarkets because it's got blemishes. There's a variety of reasons why all this food that takes so much money and so many resources to produce is wasted. And then, of course, when we get home, there's waste even deeper. Echoing. If you could show the next slide, please. So in addition to, well, if you go back one, what we're seeing is that on average, at home, 15 to 25% of the food that you purchase never gets eaten. Now, I would ask anybody participating in this to think about, have you ever thrown away any moldy bread? I love Costco. I'll buy avocados, maybe 6 or 8 of them, they're hard as rock. It takes a week for them to soften. By the time I get to the 4th or 5th avocado, it's wasted. For me, losing anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a year is probably light. I think that I throw away more food than that. So even once we bring it home, a lot of that food is wasted. Next slide. So this is a difficult number for me to try to understand, but when you take organic matter and bury it in a landfill, which is where most of our food goes when we don't consume it, it becomes a greenhouse gas. It converts into methane. And methane is one of the most potent greenhouse gases, 80 times more potent than carbon emissions from a vehicle. And there is so much organic matter going to the landfills. This is something that we can and need to change and educate people and help them understand this issue and provide solutions. Next slide. So what are some of the tangible objectives for Lunch Out of Landfills? We started first by going to the cafeterias and composting food scraps. Instead of throwing it all in the trash, you take the organic matter, put it in a bin. That does reduce the greenhouse gases we're talking about. But more importantly, when you successfully and effectively compost soils, when you mix that organic matter, food matter, with brown matter, you come up with a rich organic material that is microbial enhanced and is a commodity. So we'll take food scraps, which make it off gas, and we have potential to create a commodity that reduces runoff, absorbs more water, and absorbs carbon. One of the other objectives is to clean and decontaminate recycling, because most of us, and I again ask anybody who's participating, how are we doing on recycling? And I think most Americans are very frustrated with the process, that we don't really know what is recyclable. It's unclear. Labeling is confusing. And then there's sort of a tendency to sort of like, well, it's not really working. China's not taking our recycling material anymore. My question there is, why is China taking it in the first place? Why do we ship it 6,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean when we should be processing that here? The third objective is to recover good food, and we're going to talk about that. So a lot of the food that we're wasting can feed hungry people, and there is a lot of hunger in America, in every community. And then fourth, in schools, we want to try to promote the use of, or limit use single-use plastics and promote trash-free lunches using reusable containers, whether they're either compostable containers or plastic containers that can be taken home, cleaned, and reused again. So the next image, we're going to talk about go back just one, we're going to go back to the first two. The first two objectives, we're going to look at composting food scraps and cleaning up and decontaminating and recycling. So next image would be, in order to do this, you have to find out where your community is. Do you have a compost collection network? When we started this program in Frederick County, there was no place to compost in Frederick County. We ended up taking the organic matter to West Virginia. Since then, Frederick County now has a commercial compost facility. So you first have to look at if you have haulers, if there's going to be an in-school composting program, is there a network that exists? Once you establish, if you have that capability to get buy-in from school administrators, including food recovery, which really began to evolve after we started the program, where does the funding come from? It could, in many schools, it can come from PTA. There are an increasing number of grants that are focused on composting. And in the case of Lunch Out of Landfills, Rotary was the catalyst. We started off doing 2 programs. It cost us $1,800 to get those programs launched. The very next year, I joined in with 5 other clubs. We contributed $2,500 each, got a matching district grant. And along with the school system, we're able to fund composting in 14 different schools, more as a pilot and more as a way of encouraging school systems to take a harder look at this. Once you do that, you need to identify within the school a staff champion. Could be an environmental ed teacher, science teacher, or an impassioned teacher who is willing to host a club and engage students, generally through green teams. Certainly in high schools, Interact and college, Rotaract is a perfect place to do that. There are great curriculum opportunities, teaching, and then educating parents about trash-free lunches, or what parents pack in their lunches. Most kids don't have time to eat. They pack too much. And more often than not, the kids throw everything away, so they don't know or understand what their children didn't eat and how much money it cost them to do that. Next image. So when you actually begin to take action, the first thing is to look at the waste stream. This program is not a, what's the problem, let's throw some money at it. This is for Rotarians to roll your sleeves up, to get dirty, and to get in the schools and to see it. Because if you go to your schools and you see the waste, examine the waste stream, you'll see how much waste there is. You do that by separating liquids, food scraps, recyclables, and trash. Again, you can compost on site. In certain schools, they may have an in-school compost program, but that's very top heavy, a lot of responsibility for building services, recovering packaged food. But then it's really important to continually monitor data and look at contamination and see if things are getting lax. You have to monitor this. Once this is instituted for a couple of years, the behaviors are ingrained, it'll run itself. But when you introduce a new program, you really have to examine the waste stream and see if people are slipping up. Okay, so I have some images to share with you. So this is an example of a waste sort we did it at Urbana Elementary School. We literally took 3 trash cans at the end of the lunch period, dumped it out on a tarp, and had the kids pick through it. We had the 4 separate containers, and they put yucky, slimy bread and other food items that were perfectly edible 20 minutes before, and put it into a compost bin. We found things that were recyclable, put those in a recycle bins, pouring out the liquids that were there, and then putting whatever was left in the trash. It's incredibly yucky. These kids are courageous. They're willing to do it. And you'll find students everywhere willing to do the same thing, but a waste sort will show you. And we saw how much waste we were diverting. Next slide. Okay, this is an example of what the bins look like. So we have a simple 5-gallon bucket you can get from any paint shop or Home Depot. What's important is we have these covers, these sleeves that go over top and catch any solid material, fruits or things like that we don't want in the liquids. And then you pour that liquid down a mop sink. If there are any issues with grease traps or that, if all you have to do is dilute that fluid as you dump it down the sink, and it's not a problem. I would like you to notice that on the compost bin, the green compost bin, there's a Rotary sticker there. And the goal is, as Rotary clubs become involved, every time a child goes to a compost bin, they're going to see that Rotary is an entity that's involved in this process. Then you have the recycling and trash, which exists in most cafeterias, but aren't handled very well. Next image. When we did our waste sorts, we did a number of sorts in different schools. The high school is on the left, and there was a little bit less food that was wasted. But if I could point out the reduction in what we saw was 87% of the 102 pounds we started with at Sugarloaf Elementary School was divertible. The numbers were consistent. Valley 82%, 86% in Brunswick. Again, in high school, there's a little bit less organic material because high schoolers tend to eat more of their food than the elementary school kids do. Next image. So this is what it looks like before. And the image on the right is actually a recycle bin. So there's a blue container and there's a completely untouched sandwich in the plastic bag in the recycle bin. None of that is recyclable. And when you do that and contaminate the recycle stream, when it goes to the transfer station, it's contaminated. They have no choice but to load it up and take it to a landfill. But what you would see in the other images is this is typically what you would find. And I challenge any Rotarian or any other individual to go into the school. You're going to see this is going to be very similar, not just in the state of Maryland, but nationwide. And the after image is really only of the recycle and the organics. So we cleaned up the recycled material. In Frederick County, we're very limited on what we can recycle. We don't recycle at our own facility. Howard County is the processing plant. They only want milk bottles, water bottles, cardboard containers. Montgomery County, an adjacent county, can recycle plastics 1 through 5, which is very different. So each municipality will be different in what they can recycle. But anything we can recycle, we need to. The image on the right is the organic material. There's no contamination, no straws, no ketchup packets. But there are a lot of uneaten apples. And that was another telling element that we began to see that was problematic. Next image. This requires rolling up your sleeves, getting in the schools, and mentoring the kids. We had Rotary members in the schools every day for 5 days, helping kids to sort wastes, making sure they were doing it correctly. Elementary school kids are incredibly pliable. They pick it up really fast. You may need to continue for a few more days just to make sure they get it. But once you've shown them how to recycle and to do the waste stream properly, it catches on very quickly. High schools, if you start in high school, you're breaking habits that are 10 years old. That's difficult. And we find that elementary schools are much more pliable and easier to implement than upper schools. So the data that we found at Urbana Elementary School when we started this program in January was that of the 19,000 pounds of trash they generated from January to June, we were able to divert 9,735 pounds that was all organic. 4,100 pounds of it was liquids. So if you look at, just by that alone, we eliminated 71% of what was going into the waste stream. And this is all the yucky stuff. I think if you show the next, if you click on those, it's animated and it may show the image right. So 73% was non-recyclable waste was diverted. And when we added the 2,100 pounds of recyclables, you have to remember plastic's very light. So what was left of the recycling was, when you added that, 84.2% of this was diverted. And the next image shows that this is achievable in every municipality. So we can reduce landfill trash by 85% virtually in any school, in any state in the country. Next image. What's really exciting and what we tried to show in the beginning, this is the Hawks Club. And Megan McKeever is the teacher on the right. She spearheaded this effort. Every day the students would go into the cafeteria at the last lunch period. They would collect all the materials, they would weigh it, they would record it, and they would upload the information. What you can't see is they started with 12 kids in January. So many kids were excited about this program that by June, there were 84 kids in the Hawks Club, and they were as young as second graders. We told these kids that they might be the author of a program that could change the world, and I may actually be telling the truth. Next image. All right, so the other objective is recovering good food. As we engaged in this, we saw that there was a tremendous amount of food waste, as I showed you in the picture. So, and feeding hungry people. Next image. When we did the food waste sorts, we pulled edible food out and set it aside. Now, we couldn't do anything. We ended up throwing that back away. But when we did the waste sorts and we collected that, we pulled anything that was edible or perfectly reusable and pull it aside. In food service entities, once food services issue an item, they cannot take it back. If you don't have a share table, and share tables are not going to be likely to be occurring in the future with COVID, the children have no choice but to throw it in the trash. So this is a sample of the waste sorts that I showed you the data from. And we decided that we needed to take another step. We were telling kids initially, well, just open the milk, pour it out, put it in the recycle bin. We came up with another plan. Next slide. So we went to the Lincoln Elementary School, Title I school, and instead of telling the kids to open the milk and pour it out and to throw their apples away, we brought a cooler and had them put everything into a cooler. Now we encourage, please eat your fruit, please drink your milk, but if you're not, do this. And we recovered 58 milks. I took it to the Frederick Rescue Mission 4 blocks away. They said, well, where'd this come from? It's like from Lincoln Elementary School nearby. And they're like, is this a week's worth? Like, no, it's a day. The picture to the right is another day, 75 milks in one day. In the course of 38 days before the pandemic shut down, we recovered 2,508 milks in 38 days, an average of 64 milks a day. If you average that out to a 108-day school year, that's 11,000 milks unopened going in the trash from one school in a year. What are we doing? This is not sustainable. And we have hungry people in our community that could benefit from this. Next image. The last is to reduce single-use plastics and promote trash-free lunches. So teach parents, number one, you're probably packing too much food. Your children have 25 minutes to eat. They're busy talking. They may spend 5 minutes trying to open the ketchup packet. They don't have time to eat the food, and they may not eat what you packed anyway. You fight with your children with what they eat at breakfast. You fight with them at dinner time. You don't fight with them with what they don't eat at lunch because you don't see it. And they're smart enough to throw it away rather than bring it home and get in trouble. So there's packaging that can help with that. Next image. We really want to encourage PTAs to use reusable lunch containers, bento boxes, reusable containers, or even compostable containers. Pack less food. If you have a kindergartner, don't give them a whole sandwich, give them a half of one. Save the other half for the next day. But if you could slice your apples down, they could do that. My second grade son has no front teeth. He can't eat a whole apple, but he can eat apple slices. So let's package appropriate portion lunches and put it in things that are not single-use plastics and add to the waste stream. Next image. Okay, so we have a toolkit, which I would want to just briefly share. In the toolkit, I think we need to maybe click this on. I want to go with this ever so briefly, but there are resources in our toolkit that have guides to where you get compostable bags, where can you buy compostable containers, how to introduce a program to a principal and engender the willingness. You need to get building services to be willing to comply. And I found most building services people see the waste. Their job is to get the stuff out of there, get the cafeteria cleaned up as fast as they possibly can. But they see the waste and they're willing to help. We can actually make their job easier when kids are much more conscientious about processing their waste, where they put it. It makes their job easy. We have data collection templates, and there's some really great educational and video resources. World Wildlife Fund has the World Food Waste Warriors program that Angelina and Adika will talk to you about in just a minute. But they have some great videos about kids taking their parents on a tour of their refrigerator and all the things that were rotting. We also have sample presentations, and there's the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. If you don't have a commercial or community compost facility, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance can help you get started. Next image. So let's talk about cost for just a minute, and savings and benefits, because there are costs. How much is this going to cost, and how can we afford to do this? So the first is the cost. Offsite hauling in Maryland with a commercial contractor is going to run about $1,500 to $1,800 a year. Compostable bags are $450 a year. And what we're really encouraging our Rotary clubs this year to invest in is bins, coolers, and bucket sleeves. That's about $300. When we did the initial hauling, our clubs paid for organics removal for 1 year. We teamed up with the school system. We generated $30,000. It paid for 14 schools. But the approach here is we want to prove to the schools that this is cost neutral. So where are the savings to this? If you could show the next slide. Less trash than dumpster. 85% less trash than dumpster means less full dumpsters. And oh, by the way, the yucky stuff is out of there. So if building services are worried about vermin and that sort of thing, that goes into a compost bin that's sealed, not a dumpster. So we can save money. A high school may have as many as 9 dumpsters emptied in the course of a week. If we can eliminate by 1 or 2, it pays for the program. Fewer trash bags. In Urbana High School, they were going through 22 trash bags in a day at lunchtime. When we introduced the 4 bins, we were able to divert those into smaller containers. They only used 10. So there's a lot of savings in just materials. We believe that we can prove this to be cost neutral. It's not something that we have to perpetually fund. Our job through the data collection is to prove that this is cost neutral. And then the county itself, our municipality, has a lot of money saved by sending fewer trucks to landfill and the expense that goes with that. And then there's some unseen benefits, which is the next one. The benefits are that you can integrate waste and programming into science curriculum. There's so much science. Why does food break down into methane gas? What is the benefit of organic material and microbial rich content? The other benefit, students take the learning. The idea is teach students and they'll teach their parents. This is kind of a reverse education process. We need kids to teach us. I've got a bunch of friends who are staying with me right now. I can't get them to stop throwing banana peels in the trash, and they buy bottled water. So older people, Rotarians, may not pick this up as quickly as kids, but if you teach kids, they'll teach their parents. We have an overall reduction in waste stream. What we're talking about is modifying behavior, not just doing an activity. A stream restoration or a tree planting is an activity. This is changing behaviors and understanding those behavioral changes. This is not something that the school system can be accepted to adopt exclusively on their own. This is a community-led effort. Much of next gen education wants to engage students in community solutions, and the community can respond and help spearhead this, Rotary being an element there, and Rotary being a catalyst for that.